So, Trump to Iran, open Hormuz in 48 hours, or U.S. is going to bomb your power plants. President Trump on Saturday night gave Iran 48-hour deadline to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, or else the U.S. will start destroying Iranian power plants. The threat marks a dramatic reversal from just a day earlier, when Trump floated ending the war without reopening the strait, signaling the Hormuz crisis has become the issue he can't walk away from, even as he looks for an exit. So he was saying that we don't get our oil from the Strait of Hormuz. That's the rest of the world's problem. Why don't they get involved? And the rest of the world said, this is your war. We're not getting involved. On Friday afternoon, a little more than 24 hours before Trump's new threat, the president said he was considering winding down the war without resolving the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. If he does walk away without reopening the strait, the U.S. would be leaving other countries to clean up an economic quagmire. Roughly 1/5 of the world's oil comes from the Strait of Hormuz. With it choked off, the U.S. national average for a gallon of gas hit $3.94 Sunday. I spent $7 a gallon. I filled up yesterday. I spent $7 a gallon in Los Angeles. With it choked off, the U.S. national average for a gallon has hit close to $4 Sunday morning, according to the AAA. More than $1 more than a month earlier. So that seems like a 25% increase. Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, one of the country's top civilian leaders, responded with a threat of his own immediately after the targeting of power plants and infrastructure in our country. So if Trump does that, vital infrastructure and energy and oil facilities across the region will be considered legitimate targets and will be destroyed irreversibly, and oil prices will rise for a long time. So Iran has the ability to shut down all the oil production in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in the United Arab Emirates, everywhere in the Gulf states. They can wipe out their oil production and their energy production and their desalination plants, which means they wouldn't have oil to sell, they wouldn't have energy to power their country, and they wouldn't have water for their people, which would mean everybody in those countries would have to leave those countries immediately. Not like in a couple of months, right away, like within 72 hours. That's the power Iran has. Okay. So, Han Benjamin Braun says, hey, Mr. President, may I kindly remind you that the content of this post, the post where he says, you better get the hell, stop doing that in 48 hours, that content fits the U.S.'s very own definition of an international terrorism, as per 18 U.S. Code 2331. So here it is. You can't intimidate or coerce civilian population. You can't influence policy of a government by intimidation or coercion. So that's just a little... Yeah. So the Iranian military, this is from Al Jazeera, England. The Iranian military has outlined a potential response to the U.S. President Donald Trump's threats to attack the country's power plants if Iran does not open the Strait of Hormuz. And here it is. The Strait of Hormuz will be completely closed. It will not reopen until our damaged power plants are rebuilt. All power plants and the energy and information technology infrastructure of Israel will be widely targeted. All similar companies in the region that have American shareholders will be completely destroyed. And we know they can do that. Power plants in regional countries hosting U.S. bases will be considered legitimate targets, which I know sounds like Jackson Hinkle's new show, but that's what they're saying. So that's what they'll do. This is from DropSite. The IRGC says, you struck our hospitals, we did not do the same. You struck our emergency centers, we did not do the same. You struck our schools, we did not do the same. But if you strike electricity, we will strike electricity. We are determined to respond to any threat at the same level necessary to establish deterrence, and we will do so. The United States does not know our capabilities, and we will see them on the battlefield. This is Iran. They're ready. They're not going down without wiping out everybody in the Middle East. Here's a Zionist. He says the regime still hasn't internalized that President Trump will out-escalate them if he thinks escalation is required to force de-escalation. He is not a conventional Western politician, and Tehran repeatedly miscalculates because it keeps assuming he is. It's the exact opposite. The exact opposite is we have unbelievably miscalculated, and Trump is panicking so much that he called Putin and asked him to help us. He's panicking so much, he took the sanctions off of Russian oil. He's panicking so much, he took the sanctions off of Iran's oil.
He's doing so well.
That's Owen Jones says millions of people are carrying on their everyday lives, totally unaware of what's about to hit them. If Trump blows up Iran's power stations, Iran will destroy energy infrastructure across the Gulf. This would be one of the major before and after events of human history. The global shock triggered by this looming escalation will have ramifications for generations. Completely insane that we're on the brink of this catastrophe with very little widespread understanding of the actual stakes. I've been trying to tell people in my real life what's really going on. They have no idea. When I go to comedy clubs and I talk to other comedians, I talk to club managers and bookers and regular people in the audience, they have no idea of what's coming. They don't. Clint Russell says, if Trump follows through on Monday and hits Iranian power plants, Iran promises to hammer energy and water infrastructure throughout the GCC and shut down other shipping lanes. If Trump has a single non-Zionist advisor, they need to do everything possible to prevent this. We're talking $200 plus oil and global depression, plus what could be the fatal blow to the petrodollar, which will crash our economy, not to mention the loss of life. His current advisors clearly only care about catalyzing a full-on ground war regime change in Iran. They care not about how many American troops get killed. Congress gave up their war powers last week. So he goes on. There's nothing standing between Trump's delusions and the catastrophe it will create if he's not pulled back from the ledge. Sadly, this is the exact same moment we saw in June 2025 when Charlie Kirk spent 2 days lobbying Trump not to do this. He was assassinated, and now no one stands between Trump and his war handlers. But don't you dare connect these dots. There's another one. Friday's press gag. So this is a funny. What is it? I can't think of it. This is a Friday's gaggle, barely exaggerated. At 12:03 p.m., President Trump told reporters he wanted a ceasefire with Iran. At 12:05, he declared victory. At 12:07, he announced he was sending Marines. At 12:08, he said no boots on the ground. At 12:11, he said he did not want a ceasefire. At 12:16, he declared his victory again. At 12:17, he asked for a ceasefire. At 12:23, he told NATO they were cowards. At 12:29, he said Iran was begging for a ceasefire. At 12:31, he said everything was perfect. At 12:36, he said $500 oil was a good thing. At 12:37, he demanded Iran open Hormuz. At 12:39, he said Hormuz was never closed. At 12:41, he said the U.S. was not at war with Iran. At 12:42, he declared victory. So Trump backs off as to hold. He did back. He backed off. He did back. So he backed off.
Yeah.
So Trump totally backs off what he's been saying. So let me just. Trump backs off escalation, but Iran goes on amidst productive talks. So the headlines right now are live update, Iran war news. Trump delays strikes on Iranian power plants after very good talks with Iran. Fox News says Trump postpones strikes on Iranian energy infrastructure amid constructive talks.
Did they read Iran's note and they're like, better not do this?
Yeah. So Trump announced Monday that he was postponing his threatened military strikes against Iranian power plants for at least 5 days. Hours ahead of his deadline for Tehran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. He said U.S. and Iran were in productive talks toward a complete and total resolution of the war from Tehran. Though Tehran denied that they're even talking. Trump's reversal delays what many feared would mark a significant new escalation for the civilians across the region. Iran's foreign ministry appeared to counter Trump's version of events. though, saying in a statement published by semi-official news agency Mera News that there was, quote, no dialogue between, so they're not talking. So I believe Tehran when they say they're not negotiating with Trump because they negotiated with Trump twice before, and in the middle of those negotiations, Trump bombed them last June, and then Trump also bombed them again, starting the war when they were in the middle of negotiations. And now Tehran is like, we're not negotiating with Trump. This is our demand. You got to leave the Middle East, or we're going to destroy it. It said Trump's delay was part of efforts to reduce energy prices and buy time to implement its military plans, while acknowledging there are initiatives from regional countries to reduce tension. Iranian state media said the president had backed down following Iran's vow. So they did. So what you just saw happen today, Monday, was Trump backed down. Though markets responded positively to Trump, so when Trump turned around, markets went back, so oil went down. It was swiftly followed by a new round of Israeli strikes in the heart of Tehran. And then the Islamic Republic had so far shown no sign of capitulating to the American-Israeli assault, despite the killing of the supreme leader and other senior officials. Speaking with reporters on the tarmac in West Palm Beach, Trump said Iran had called the U.S. in a bid to make a deal and resolve the war diplomatically. That didn't happen. I'm going to tell you that didn't happen. The president said 15 points had been discussed, including Iran never being able to attain a nuclear weapon. So what Trump is just signaling there, if you don't know what he's signaling, is that he wants to go back to the Barack Obama nuclear deal with Iran, the one that he ripped up. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. And so all this was, so he's pretending like this is still about the nukes. This is about Israel wanting to destabilize the region. That's what this is about. So he's pretending this is about United States and Iran, and it's not. It's about Israel and Iran and Lebanon and Syria and Turkey and Libya.
I appreciate Trump demonstrating what a bitch the position of president of the United States is, because people wouldn't understand unless you were watching. You wouldn't be able to explain it to people.
So what Trump just said, again, I'm going to tell you what he just said, was nobody wants to be, he's not going to tell you who they're negotiating with inside of Iran because he doesn't want them to get killed.
Israel's just going to kill everyone.
And so what does he mean by that? He means Israel keeps killing their leaders. Anybody who tries to negotiate a peace deal, Israel kills them. So I'm not going to tell anybody who we're talking to because Israel will then kill them and kill the peace negotiation process. He's admitting that Israel is killing every peace negotiator inside of Iran, which is what they're doing. When they killed Larjani, their defense minister, because Larjani was the guy who kept giving an off-ramp to Trump. He wanted to negotiate a way out of this war. And so Israel killed him because they don't want this war to end. Israel wants this war to keep going forever. They want to wipe out, they want to turn Iran into Libya, a failed state where there's civil war, and they want to wipe out the United States in the region. Israel does.
And Netanyahu wants to not go to prison the second this is over.
Asked on NBC News Meet the Press on Sunday whether the U.S. was scaling back the war against Iran or escalating, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, said those two things were not mutually exclusive. Sometimes you have to escalate to de-escalate. Listen to these people. Listen to them.
What?
Asked whether Washington could use troops to secure the Strait of Hormuz or for any other reason, he said Trump would not give away what we're going to do. He also warned that all options were on the table to secure Karg Island. Now, Karg Island is a critical hub for Iran's oil production, which was bombed by the U.S. last week, including the deployment of troops. So they're saying the idea that Trump is now sending Marines, they're saying they're going to send the Marines to take over Karg Island, which is where Iran sends their oil to then be loaded onto tankers in a place called Karg Island. So if they can, the idea is if the Marines take over Karg Island, will stop Iran from being able to send oil to the rest of the world. But the problem is Iran will then, those Marines will be sitting targets, sitting ducks, and Iran will wipe them out. That's the problem. In the meantime, the Iranian attacks on shipping in the area effectively closing the strait. Oil prices have rocked globally, blah, 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 blah. It remains to be seen how the conflict consuming the region will now play out in these days ahead, including what Israel's response will be to Trump's sudden shift toward a deal. There could be, now an off-ramp to completely de-escalate and end this conflict, at least between the United States and Iran. Decoding Iran's foreign policy, the guy who was the author of Decoding Iran's Foreign Policy told NBC News in a phone interview, or it could be a trap, said Harrison, who is currently in the region, with Trump possibly looking to buy time to prepare for expanded U.S. operation as Iran. So he might want this 5-day pause to use that as a trap so the United States can build up their military to take over Cargill. Ultimately, Harrison said it was too soon to know exactly what might be behind the dramatic turn of events, with details on who was invoked in talks and what, if anything, has been agreed still unclear. So here's Trump saying Iran wants to make a deal. No kidding.
Tomorrow morning sometime, their time, we were expecting to blow up their largest electric generating plants that cost over $10 billion to build. It's a very good one. There was no dearth of money. And one shot, it's gone. It collapses. Why would they want that? So they called. I didn't call. They called. They want to make a deal. And we are very willing to make a deal. It's got to be a good deal. And it's got to be no more wars, no more nuclear weapons. They're not going to have nuclear weapons anymore. They're agreeing to that.
Yeah. He wants Barack Obama's nuclear deal.
Israel give him like a toy phone as he's talking to Iran.
I think so. I don't think Iran called him. I think he's making that up.
Oh, okay.
I am pleased to report that the United States of America and the country of Iran have had, over the last 2 days, very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East based on the tenor and tone of these in-depth, detailed, and constructive conversations, which will continue throughout the week. I have instructed the Department of War to postpone any and all military strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period, subject to the success of the ongoing meetings and discussions. Thank you for your attention to this matter. It turns out, Iran's foreign ministry, there is no negotiation whatsoever between Tehran and Washington. The statements of the President of the United States are within the framework of an attempt to lower energy prices and buy time for the implementation of the military plans. So Iran knows what's going on. Trump is just saying these things to temporarily lower the price of oil and to give the United States military time to get in place to try to take over Cargill Island. They know this. They know that Trump's doing this, and so they're not negotiating. They're not negotiating. I don't believe that they called him. I think Trump's making this up for those two reasons, those exact two reasons. Daniel McAdams says Trump is flat out lying and doesn't even seem to understand that everyone knows he's lying.
That's why I'm like, does he have a fake speak and spell phone or something from Israel? He thinks he's doing business. Because why would he not? It's so like he doesn't, it's so not a lie in like, where the guy seems unaware that anyone would be able to see through this to an absurd amount. Where it's like, is he also fooled? What's happening?
Shortly after our report, Iran state media denied that direct or indirect talks were taking place. U.S. officials say talks are happening. Iranian officials say they aren't. Who are you going to believe?
Maybe it's so that Israel doesn't know who to kill and they're both working together trying to keep Israel from killing yet more people. I don't know.
So there you go. That's the story, ladies and gentlemen. That's Donald Trump's, what he means today. We don't know what he means tomorrow. He's all over the map. You know why? Because there's no point to this war. It was not done with prudence. They didn't plan for this. And there's no reason for us to be involved in it. And there's no goal. There's no end game. There's no reason to be there. There's nothing. There's nothing. Iran is not messing around. They tried to negotiate with Donald Trump twice. He bombed them twice in the middle of negotiations. So they know that they cannot ever at all ever trust Donald Trump. And they either get completely annihilated Iran in in which case they will completely annihilate Israel and the Gulf states, the Gulf states, the ones who produce all the oil. So guess what that will do? That will plunge the world into an economic depression. It will, millions, if not maybe billions people will probably die because they can't get heating oil, they can't get energy to cool themselves. More people die from cold or heat. Pretty sure it's from cold. So they won't. Yeah. So this is what's going to happen. So the point I'm giving you is that Iran has the power to make the United States retreat from this war. You know, Donald Trump said, I want an unconditional surrender from Iran, nothing unconditional, which it's the last time we got an unconditional surrender from anybody, it took a nuclear bomb to do it. And so Jack Cohen has a hilarious joke. He says that unconditional surrender from Iran, he can't even get that from Minnesota. So it's going to happen the other way. It took you a while to get that joke, huh, Kurt? So what's going to happen, because Iran has the ability to knock out all the Gulf states and all their oil producing abilities, not only that, but all their desalinization plants. So if they do that means that everybody in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, they all have to leave those countries because there won't be any water and there won't be any power, and you start to die in 72 hours. So that's what's going to happen. So they have Iran has the power to do that. Donald Trump, I don't think, was told that. I think Donald Trump has been lied to from the start of this war to now. They told him it was going to be easy, it would be quick, just like Venezuela, and he was lied to, and now he realized, I think he's starting to realize that he's screwed, because when he comes out and says, oh yeah, the war is almost over, oh yeah, we're close to a negotiation, when he says all that stuff, what he's doing is he's trying to manipulate the price of oil internationally, and it works for a little while until Iran then says no, we're not negotiating, and then the price goes back. So he realizes they're in a pickle now, and I wonder if he realizes that he's been thoroughly hoodwinked by Jared Kushner, Benjamin Netanyahu, and Steve Witkoff, and his dry drunk defense secretary Pete Hegseth. I'm pretty sure. If he doesn't realize,
he's blackmailed anyway, so who cares what he knows?
Right. So he's getting blackmailed anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
You don't like it, Trump? We'll take it.
So Colonel McGregor is now saying that he thinks that it's most likely that Putin has already threatened Israel. He's already threatened Israel, saying, hey, if you do anything, like, we will nuke you out of existence. The problem is, the crazy religious zealots, you know how they always try to make it out that Muslims are the crazy religious zealots, right? Well, even more zealot than them are the crazy Jewish zealots, Zionist zealots, who want the end times because they believe when Israel is on the brink of total annihilation, that God is going to intervene on their behalf. So they have to create an Armageddon in order to bring God back to intervene on. This is what they think.
I thought just evangelicals said that, but no, it turned out it was coming from Zionists. Evangelicals are secondary to the Zionists who put that out there.
So there's Christian Zionism, and then there's Jewish Zionism, which are different Zionisms, as it turns out. And they're both just as crazy. And so that's a problem with that. I see the problem with what? With Putin's saying. I see a problem. I see a problem. It's funny. World War III is funny. It's just inherently due to the war. Hilarious.
they imprisoned him for life.
Oh, really?
For life. Oh, yeah. So the guy who was on is that ratted him out for that. To say the official don't have is ridiculous. Why are you holding your hand forever? But not doing this on. That's what they're doing to a Jewish guy. He called the Jewish guy.
Oh, again, telling the truth. Being right when the government is wrong is very dangerous. It's always very dangerous. So, why would someone named Liz Fields, why would people do that? Why would people do that? Perhaps how about perhaps to prevent a nuclear holocaust? How about that? Because if Israel launches a nuke at a Muslim country, at Iran, that could set off nuclear Armageddon. I mean, there's other places in the world that have nukes, right? North Korea has nukes. Pakistan have nukes. Does India have nukes? We're going to find out. Huh? I'm pretty sure they do. They get those H-1B visas over to crack the nuclear.
See, that's how they did it with H-1B.
That's how they did it. Seawolf Clan says, who is talking about using a nuclear weapon? So many people predicting Israel will lose so bad, and they are so insane, so they may use one. It's called so there's a real thing. It's called the Samson option. When they feel like they're going to lose, they're going to launch nukes against everybody and take everybody down with them. That's a real thing. I'm not making that up.